The Harley standing at the gas station was worth $60,000, but it couldn't start. Its chrome shined under the dim yellow light, but its engine only coughed and rattled before dying in frustration. 42-year-old Daniel Miller had $2 to his name, and only a few hours to find food for himself and his loyal dog Rusty. Daniel's clothes were worn, his beard long, and his hair tangled, but his hands still remembered a life when engines were part of his world. He leaned against the concrete wall of the station, watching with quiet eyes as the biker cursed his machine. Rusty sat beside him, tail brushing the ground, ears pricked toward the sound of the broken engine. The dog's ribs showed faintly under his coat, yet his loyalty shone brighter than hunger. "Easy, boy," Daniel murmured, scratching Rusty's ear. The biker slammed a fist against the handlebars, his leather vest emblazoned with the insignia of the Hells Angels. Passers-by glanced nervously, but looked away quickly, pretending not to notice. No one dared approach. Daniel knew that fear. He had felt it too many times directed at himself. But something inside him stirred an old knowledge that refused to stay buried. He remembered nights in his 20s, bent over carburetors in dimly lit garages, where grease coated his hands and laughter came easily. Engines had been puzzles he loved to solve. Those days ended when the economy crumbled, jobs vanished, and life's weight pushed him onto the streets. Yet even after years of hunger, cold, and invisibility, his mind hadn't forgotten the sound of a choking engine. Rusty nudged him with a paw, urging him forward. "Yeah, I know," Daniel whispered. "We could walk away, but maybe tonight we don't." He pushed off the wall, stepping toward the stranded biker. The man turned sharply, eyes narrowing at Daniel's ragged appearance. "What do you want?" His voice was harsh, suspicious. Daniel lifted his hands in peace. "Not looking for trouble. Just sounds like a fuel issue. Mind if I take a look?" The biker's jaw clenched. Around the station, silence grew heavy. A couple filling their tank froze mid-motion, watching nervously. Rusty sat obediently at Daniel's side, his head tilted as if backing his master's words. The biker sneered. You look like you couldn't fix a bicycle, let alone this beast." Daniel met his glare calmly. "Maybe, but maybe I can." For a moment, the biker hesitated, torn between pride and frustration. The engine was lifeless, mocking him. With a grunt, he stepped aside. "Fine, but if you mess it up worse, you'll answer to me." Daniel crouched, his knees stiff from years of sleeping on concrete, and laid his hands gently on the Harley as though greeting an old friend. He inspected the carburetor, checked the fuel line, and tapped the float bowl. "Clogged jet," he muttered. His fingers, though dirty and worn, moved with certainty. Rusty sat like a sentinel, his gaze fixed on Daniel, as if guarding this fragile moment. Daniel pulled a thin piece of wire from his pocket, a scrap he had carried for months without reason until now. He used it to clean the jet, cleared the blockage, and adjusted the idle screw. His movements were slow, deliberate, almost reverent. The biker hovered impatiently, arms crossed, glancing at the crowd that had gathered to watch. People whispered, some amused, others curious, all waiting to see if a homeless man could breathe life into a machine worth more than he would ever touch. Daniel wiped his hands on his jeans, stood, and gave a small nod. "Try it now." The biker swung his leg over the seat, turned the key, and pressed the starter. For a tense moment, the engine sputtered weakly. Then, with a thunderous roar, it came alive, smooth and powerful, echoing across the station. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Rusty barked, tail thumping against the ground as if celebrating victory. The biker's eyes widened in shock, then narrowed again, uncertain how to respond. He revved the engine, listening to its steady growl, and finally looked down at Daniel. "How the hell did you?" Daniel shrugged. "Engines talk. You just have to know how to listen." The biker dismounted, standing face to face with Daniel. For a heartbeat, tension hung heavy, the crowd expecting violence. Instead, the biker pulled a folded bill from his vest and shoved it at Daniel. "Here, take it." Daniel shook his head. "Didn't do it for money." The biker growled. "Take it anyway." Daniel reluctantly accepted, slipping the cash into his pocket. It wasn't much, but it meant food for Rusty. The crowd began to disperse, murmuring about what they had witnessed. Daniel scratched Rusty's head, whispering, "Guess we still got it, huh, boy?" Rusty barked once, proud and loyal as ever, but not everyone was impressed. Another biker emerged from the shadows near the pumps, heavier and meaner, with tattoos crawling up his neck and eyes full of disdain. "What's this?" he demanded. "You let some bum touch your bike?" The first biker stiffened. "He fixed it," the newcomer sneered. "Or maybe he messed with it so it would break again tomorrow." "You can't trust his kind." Daniel lifted his chin. "I don't want anything from you. Just fixed what was broken." Rusty growled low, sensing the hostility. The crowd froze again, fear thick in the air. Trouble was far from over. The second biker stepped closer, towering over Daniel. "You think you're some kind of hero?" he hissed. "You're nothing. Trash." His voice cut sharp, meant to humiliate. Daniel stayed calm, his eyes steady. "Doesn't take a hero to fix an engine, just hands that know what they're doing." The biker raised a fist, but Rusty barked fiercely, teeth bared, standing between them. Gasps rose from the crowd. For a moment, violence seemed inevitable. Then, the first biker spoke firmly. "Enough, Mark. He saved me a walk home. That's the truth." Mark glared, but slowly lowered his hand, muttering curses. Daniel let out a slow breath. He had seen tempers flare too many times, but tonight he had stood his ground. The first biker gave him a curt nod before mounting the Harley again. "You've got hands, old man," he muttered. "Don't waste them." With that, he roared out of the station, leaving Mark glaring behind him. The crowd slowly returned to their business, but their whispers lingered. Daniel crouched beside Rusty, rubbing his head. "We're still invisible, boy," he murmured, "but maybe not to everyone." Rusty wagged his tail. Daniel pocketed the cash, a rare weight of hope in his hand. That night, Daniel and Rusty found shelter beneath an abandoned awning near the tracks. Rain pattered against the tin roof, and Rusty curled close for warmth. Daniel lay awake, the roar of the Harley replaying in his mind. He thought of the biker's grudging respect, Mark's rage, and the eyes of strangers who, for once, had looked at him not as a beggar, but as someone who mattered. "Engines still talk to me," he whispered. Rusty licked his hand softly, as if agreeing. For the first time in months, Daniel dared to believe tomorrow might carry more than hunger. The following morning, Daniel returned to the station, drawn by instinct. Rusty padded beside him, eager for whatever the day would bring. As they approached, he froze. A row of motorcycles lined the curb, their chrome flashing in the sun. At least a dozen Hell's Angels stood together, their leather vests marked with patches, their eyes fixed on him. Daniel's chest tightened. Rusty growled, pressing close. One of the bikers stepped forward. It was the man whose Harley he had fixed. "You," the biker said, pointing. "Come here." Daniel swallowed hard, uncertain if this was reward or punishment. The air buzzed with danger. Rusty whimpered softly, but Daniel laid a hand on his head. "Easy, boy. Whatever this is, we'll face it together." He stepped forward cautiously, the eyes of the entire gang on him. The biker folded his arms, studying Daniel. "Last night, you saved me. Most would have walked by. That counts for something." The other bikers murmured, some skeptical, some intrigued. Mark stood in the back, his glare like a knife. Daniel said nothing, waiting. Rusty sat obediently, gaze steady. The silence stretched before the biker finally spoke again. "We don't usually take help from outsiders, but you're not like most." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "I'm just a man with a dog, trying to get by." The biker smirked faintly. "Maybe. Or maybe you're more than that. You've got hands that can fix what others give up on. That kind of skill doesn't go unnoticed." Mark snarled from the back. "He's a stray, that's all he is." But the first biker ignored him. He took a step closer to Daniel. "Stick around. Maybe you'll find out this world isn't as closed as you think." Daniel's heart pounded. Rusty barked once, tail wagging uncertainly. For the first time in years, the door cracked open. Daniel stood at the edge of the gas station lot, his worn boots scuffing against the cracked pavement. Rusty pressed close, ears pinned back, but his eyes sharp, ready to defend his master. A dozen Hells Angels watched silently, their leather vests marked with patches that told stories of loyalty and violence. The man whose Harley Daniel had fixed the night before broke the silence. "You've got something rare," he said. "Hands that listen to engines. Not many can do that." His words carried weight, though not everyone in the group agreed. Skepticism hung in the air like storm clouds. Mark, the mean-eyed biker who had nearly struck Daniel the night before, stepped forward. "You're really gonna stand here and praise a bum?" he spat. "He's nothing. You give him a chance and he'll drag us down." The leader turned his gaze to Mark, steady and unyielding. "He fixed what you couldn't. That matters." Daniel stayed quiet, letting the bikers argue. He had learned long ago that words could backfire. Rusty growled low, tail stiff, as if warning Mark to keep his distance. The tension in the air was thick, every passing second stretching longer than it should. Finally, the leader looked back at Daniel. "You're not one of us, but you're not nobody either. You want to prove yourself. Ride with us tonight." Daniel's heart lurched. He hadn't touched a motorcycle in years, not since life had stripped away his garage, his tools, his family. "I don't have a bike," he said quietly. The leader smirked. "You'll ride mine. If you can handle it, maybe you've got a place here. If not," he left the rest unsaid. Rusty barked once, tail wagging uncertainly, as if sensing the weight of the decision hanging over his master. Daniel hesitated. The thought of roaring down the highway again stirred something deep inside him, a memory of freedom, of life before everything fell apart. But the danger was real. One wrong move could turn the angels against him permanently. He looked down at Rusty, whose eyes shone with trust. "All right," Daniel said finally, his voice firm. "I'll ride." A ripple moved through the group, some laughing, some muttering. Mark sneered, convinced Daniel would fail. The leader handed him the keys. The Harley gleamed under the sun, powerful and heavy. Daniel's fingers shook as he wrapped them around the handlebars. He swung a leg over the seat, settling into the saddle. The weight of the machine pressed into him like an old memory. For a moment, doubt clawed at him. Could he really do this after so many years? Rusty barked sharply, as if reminding him of who he was. Daniel took a deep breath, turned the key, and pressed the starter. The Harley roared to life beneath him, its thunder echoing across the station. The angels watched closely, their faces a mix of skepticism and curiosity. Daniel gripped the throttle, heart pounding, and eased the bike forward onto the street. The city blurred as the wind whipped against his face. The Harley moved like a beast, heavy but obedient to skilled hands. Daniel leaned into the turns, remembering the muscle memory that had never truly left him. The roar of the engine wasn't just noise, it was music, a heartbeat syncing with his own. For the first time in years, he felt alive, not invisible, not broken. He circled the block, the bike responding smoothly to every touch, then brought it back to the station with a controlled stop. The angel stared in silence as he dismounted, handing the keys back calmly. The leader's lips curled into the faintest smile. "Not bad," he said. "Not bad at all." Mark, however, was livid. "That doesn't mean anything. Any fool can ride a bike. He's still a bum." The leader shot him a hard look. "Maybe. But he's a bum who just handled my Harley better than some of you." Laughter rippled through the group, though Mark didn't join in. Daniel scratched Rusty's ears, whispering, "We did all right, didn't we, boy?" Rusty wagged his tail proudly, tongue lolling. For the first time in years, Daniel felt the faint warmth of respect in strangers' eyes. Over the next few days, Daniel returned to the gas station, drawn by the possibility of something different. The angels began to tolerate his presence, if not fully accepted. When bikes needed small fixes, Daniel lent his hands, tightening bolts, adjusting chains, cleaning jets. His touch brought machines back to life, and even the most skeptical bikers couldn't deny his skill. Rusty became a familiar sight too, lying near the bikes as Daniel worked, tail thumping lazily. Yet Mark never stopped glaring. His resentment festered, poisoning every glance. Daniel knew trouble would come, but for now, he savored purpose. One night, the leader approached Daniel as he sat on the curb, Rusty resting his head on his lap. "Why help us?" the leader asked. "You don't owe us anything." Daniel shrugged. "Engines are engines. Doesn't matter who owns them. They deserve to run." The leader studied him carefully. "You could have walked away. Most would have, but you stayed." Daniel met his gaze steadily. "When you've lost everything, helping someone else keep theirs feels right." Rusty barked softly, as if agreeing. The leader nodded slowly. "Maybe you're more than you seem." Daniel smiled faintly. "Maybe I'm just a man and his dog." But the fragile acceptance couldn't last unchallenged. Mark confronted Daniel one evening as the sun bled red across the horizon. "You think you belong here?" he growled. "You don't. You'll never wear the patch. You'll never ride with us for real." Daniel stood calmly, Rusty at his side. "I never asked for a patch, just fixing what's broken." Mark's lip curled. "You fixed my pride when you touched that bike. That I won't forgive." He stepped closer, fists clenched. Rusty growled, teeth bared. Before violence erupted, the leader's voice cut through. "Enough, Mark. He's not your enemy." Mark snarled, but backed away. The weeks rolled on, and Daniel's reputation grew. More and more, the angels brought him their bikes, some reluctantly, others with quiet respect. Each machine he touched seemed to breathe easier, as if responding to his warm but steady hands. Rusty became their unofficial mascot, often fed scraps by bikers who had once eyed him with suspicion. Daniel earned small payments, just enough to keep himself and Rusty fed. For the first time in years, hunger wasn't a daily torment. Still, he never forgot the streets. Each night, when the engines went silent, he lay beside Rusty, remembering how fragile it all was. Then came the night everything changed. Daniel was walking Rusty past the gas station when he heard shouting. A group of angels surrounded a biker whose Harley had broken down miles from home. Frustration boiled as they argued, none able to fix it. Daniel stepped forward quietly, Rusty trotting at his side. "Let me look," he said. At first, laughter met his words, but when the leader gestured for silence, Daniel knelt and got to work. Within minutes, the Harley roared back to life. The bikers stared, stunned. Rusty barked triumphantly. The leader smiled. "Maybe it's time we stop calling you a bum." That night, Daniel sat around the fire with the angels for the first time. Rusty curled at his feet, belly full from scraps tossed his way. The bikers shared stories, laughter, and respect. For once, Daniel wasn't invisible. He was part of something bigger. The leader raised a bottle in a toast. To Daniel and Rusty, proof that loyalty and skill matter more than anything else. The bikers cheered, even those who had doubted him. Mark scowled, but stayed silent. Daniel stroked Rusty's fur, whispering, "Guess we've found a place, huh, boy?" Rusty wagged his tail, eyes gleaming with simple joy. Still, Daniel knew acceptance came with risk. The angels lived in a world of loyalty and danger, and one misstep could turn respect into fury. But as he looked at Rusty, then at the firelight flickering in the biker's eyes, he felt something he hadn't felt in years: belonging. Tomorrow might bring challenges, maybe even violence. But tonight, he wasn't alone. He was Daniel Miller, a man whose hands still held worth, and Rusty, his faithful dog, was his shield against despair. For the first time in decades, Daniel allowed himself to dream not of riches, but of dignity reclaimed.